Thank you so much for tuning in today. We hope you get the most out of this workshop and it makes writing the personal insight questions and extracurricular section a little easier. My name is Alberto Davalos. I am one of the Senior Assistant Directors of Admissions here at UC Berkeley. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm so excited to be here to go over the UC application. So before we begin with the extracurricular section, I do want to point out some things that we will consider during our comprehensive review. So these are all the factors that all the UCs will take into consideration during our review of your application. So we'll look at academic opportunities available in your schools, achievement in special projects, geographic location, special talent achievements and awards, participation in educational prep programs, just to name a few things. Some things that you will not see on here that we will not take into consideration during our review of your application include your ethnicity, your race, gender identity, sexual orientation, political affiliation. None of that is considered during our review process. We only consider these things when reviewing applications for admission. So first, I'll start off with the extracurricular activities section, which is basically just asking, how do you spend your time outside of your classroom? When you're not taking classes at your high school or community college, what are you doing with that free time? So what are we looking for in this section? This section is you have 20 spots available to put anything you would like us to know about how you're spending your time outside of the classroom. And you can put them in the following categories: activities, awards, volunteer experience, employment experience, special programs, and any non-A through G coursework taken during high school. So as I said, there's 20 spaces available to you. You can do 15 activities and 5 awards, or 5 activities, 5 awards, 5 volunteer, 5 employment opportunities. It's up to you. There's no preference on how the spaces are filled. And you want to average the hours per week and weeks per year. We know that some weeks will be a little bit busier. For example, if you're working like a retail job and during the holiday season, you work a lot more hours than normal. We understand that. So you just want to try to choose the average, and you can always expand on that in the description of your extracurricular section or in the additional comment section at the end. And you have 350 characters to answer this section. So it's not a lot of space. So you want to make sure you get straight to the point, use concise language. For this part of the application, it's okay if you don't use complete sentences. We just want you to get the point across of what your specific role in the activity was. So some things to consider when reporting your extracurriculars. You want to identify your role specifically. Like what do you do? So for example, if you are a transfer student and you are at the student government for at San Diego Mesa College, for example, then you would identify your role specifically and what your duties are as student body president of San Diego Mesa College. Or it could be if you work at a coffee shop as a shift manager, then you could talk about what your roles are specifically. What are your duties as a shift manager? Maybe you are the eldest sibling in a family and you help take care of your younger siblings. Talk about what your responsibilities include. So all kinds of things can be in the extracurricular section. You just want to make sure that you provide a lot of details about what your specific role was. Want to demonstrate consistency, so prioritize things that you've been involved with for several years, or maybe you've only been involved with it for the last year or so, but you've been super into it and spending a lot of time during this last year. That's totally fine. Note any traditional or non-traditional leadership responsibilities. So as I mentioned earlier, like maybe you're the eldest sibling in a family. Maybe you are a caretaker for elderly relatives. Maybe you are a parent and you're raising your kids in addition to being a full-time student. All of those kinds of things we will consider on the application as long as you tell us about them. Because those are non-traditional or traditional leadership responsibilities. A traditional one could be something like soccer team captain or student body president, something like that. Want to quantify and measure your time as best as possible and consider those non-traditional activities. Yeah, so you can see that work and family responsibilities do count as long as you tell us about them. So maybe you live in a rural area and it takes you an hour to get to school one way every day. You can talk about that because that really impacts your academic journey and your ability to get involved in extracurriculars at your school. It informs us of what your academic journey has been. So it could be something like commute time. It could be something like those family responsibilities. All those kinds of things can be put in here. So some tips on how to fill out the extracurricular section. Write out the full description, so avoid acronyms and abbreviations, especially in the title. So we can't make any assumptions. So we want to make sure that you report everything explicitly so that we know exactly what you're talking about. Consider the scope of activities and awards. So for example, if you were awarded best student in San Diego, then you'll want to put the criteria that was used for that award. So like, was it, who was eligible for this award? Was this just in the school? Did you have to be an enrolled student in San Diego County, or was it limited to the city of San Diego? What was the process to get this award? Was it based on GPA? Did you have to submit an essay, or did you have to interview? If you received the award, was it at a special ceremony at City Hall, for example? Did it come with a cash prize or scholarship? All those kinds of details are what we're looking for. Again, estimate your time as best as possible. And for first-year applicants, focus on activities that happen during high school, while transfer applicants should focus on anything beyond leaving high school. That's not a hard and fast rule, but prioritize, especially for the transfer students here today, prioritize reporting activities and awards and employment experiences that you've participated in since graduating high school. So next, we'll move on to the personal insight questions. And that's really where we're looking for what it tells your story. You get to tell us your own story in your own words. So what are the personal insight questions? Personal insight questions are about getting to know you better, where you tell us about your life experience, interests, ambitions, and inspirations. Think of it as your interview with the admissions office on paper. We can't interview all of the thousands of students that apply every year, so we really utilize the personal insight question responses as a way to get to know you and hear your own experience in your own words. You want to be open, you want to be reflective, and find your individual voice and express it. We're not looking for any fancy words. You don't have to use SAT words, for example, or like use thesaurus for every other word. We're really just reading for content. So you can use plain language, it's totally fine. And while this section of the application is just one part of the whole application review, it does help provide context for the rest of your application. So it can be used to explain grade trends or your decision to pursue a specific area of study or all of those kinds of things. So it really helps us get to see the full picture of you and everything you're going to bring to the university. So I do want to make sure that everyone knows the PIQs are not essays. So we are not looking for thesis statements or body paragraph 1, body paragraph 2, conclusion, not like that. We ideally want to read your responses as if it was your response during an interview. So how would you respond to the prompt if it was asked during an interview? That's what we're looking for. The responses are not graded, so we're not reading for style or anything like that. It's okay if you have a grammar mistake or a typo, for example. We're really just reading for content. And all responses are used by all the campuses to which you apply. So if you're applying to several UCs, you can't pick and choose, like, I want UCLA to read these for, I want Davis to read these for, and I want Berkeley to read these other ones. It doesn't work like that. It's the same application for each UC. And so we'll share this responses. So the same responses will be read by Davis, Berkeley, San Diego, Santa Cruz, any UC that you apply to. So the basics. First year applicants will have 8 questions to choose from, and you'll select 4. There's no preface on which 4. It's up to you, whichever one fits your experiences and what you want us to know about you. Transfer students have 1 required question that they must answer, regardless of major, regardless of campus they're applying to. And then they have a list of 3, or excuse me, then they will select 3 from a list of 7. So altogether, both first years and transfer students are submitting 4 total personal insight questions. It's just that transfer students have 1 required one that they must answer. You have 350 words per response. So you want to make sure you're concise and edit it down. Make sure that every word is adding value to your overall narrative. Choose questions that tell us the most about you rather than what you feel we want to hear. We really want you to be authentic and reflective in your responses. We want to make sure that like you and your experiences are coming across well. And the additional comment section is another section that can be used to add additional context, but should not be used for your fifth PIQ response, for example. So the personal insight questions come in a couple different categories, and to make it more approachable and easier to digest, we've really narrowed it down to just a few words. So there's the prompts here. You can see the major prep is the required transfer question. The first year equivalent is the favorite academic subject. So only transfer applicants will have access to the major prep question, and only first year applicants, the students applying right out of high school, will have access to the favorite academic subject question. So we'll begin with the major prep question. So again, this is required for all transfer applicants, regardless of major, regardless of campus. Please describe how you have prepared for your intended major, including your readiness to succeed in your upper division courses once you enroll at the university. So what we're looking for here. How did you explore your academic interests both inside and outside of the classroom, if applicable? Do you have an internship related to your area of study? Do you have, did your part-time job or full-time job influence your decision to pursue a specific area of study? Maybe it's personal experiences that are informing your area of study. We want to know what sparked your interest in the subject. One thing we do not want to hear from in this prompt is, for example, if you're applying as a biology student. Don't respond by saying, like, I've prepared for my upper division courses by taking General Chemistry 1 and General Chemistry 2 and Calculus 1 and Calculus 2. We don't need any of that information because we're already going to see that in your academic history. So we already see what classes you've taken. We're really looking for what have you done outside of the classroom, what's informing your decision to pursue this specific area of study. So it could be internships again, life experience. Maybe you went to the zoo in fourth grade, and ever since then you've been obsessed with wildlife ecology. And that's why you're applying as a wildlife fish and conservation biology major or something like that. So just to give you an idea. All right, so that was the required transfer one. Other than the favorite academic subject area one, the rest are all the same for both first year and transfer applicants. And this is the first optional PIQ. This is the leadership one. Describe an example of your leadership experience in which you have positively influenced others, helped resolve disputes, or contributed to group efforts over time. So for this one, you'll want to consider both traditional and non-traditional types of leadership. Traditional types of leadership could be soccer team captain or president of the student body, something like that. Non-traditional type could be, as I said earlier, eldest sibling in a family. Maybe you're a student parent. You're a caregiver for elderly relatives. You have a part-time job to supplement your family's income. All those things could be considered non-traditional types of leadership. You want to consider the accomplishments at what you learned from this experience. So really reflect on what this leadership experience, what impact it's left on you. Has it informed your academic journey? Has it changed your definition of what a leader is? All those kinds of things. Really want you to reflect and put that in your response. And you want to be specific in your responsibilities as well. So don't make grand statements of like, I am the best leader San Francisco County has ever seen, without providing specific examples of like what makes you say that. What are the specific experiences that you have as a leader in San Francisco that have informed this grand statement? So you want to be very specific and provide details. That's what's really going to make you stand out in the UC application, is providing very specific details and experiences. That's how you set yourself apart, by being very specific and giving us lots of references. Oops, sorry about that. I clicked the wrong. Here we go. All right. Next is the creativity question. So every person has a creative side. It can be expressed in many ways: problem solving, original and innovative thinking, and artistically, to name a few. Describe how you express your creative side. So there are a couple different types of creativity. There's no one specific one we're looking for. It could be something artistic like watercolor painting or drawing or poetry, something like that. That's great. If it is something like poetry, please do not answer this in a poem. That's not what we're looking for in this prompt. We want you to talk more about your creativity and not provide an example in like poem form. So different types of creativity. Do you have a creative skill? Do you solve problems in different ways? I once read an application from a student who talked about they came up with an out of the box kind of way to handle Black Friday shopping traffic and their retail job. So the checkout process was a big pain point in this customer experience. So they worked with their team to come up with a different system ahead of the Black Friday rush. And that's how they express their creativity, by streamlining the process and making it easier for both the employees and for the customers. So just an example of a response in the past. Do you have solved problems in different ways? And does this skill affect you inside or outside of the classroom? Maybe it's informed your decision to pursue a creative major or something in the arts or something like that. Just to name a few. All right, the next question is the talent or skill question. What would you say is your greatest talent or skill? How have you demonstrated and developed this talent over time? Why is this talent or skill meaningful to you? Maybe your skill is speaking multiple languages, and it's meaningful to you because you are your family's primary translator, for example. Or maybe it's something related to like your studies, like math really comes easy to you, and you've been able to excel in your math courses, and you've been able to take more rigorous classes in this subject area compared to students in your grade or something like that. It could be all kinds of things. It's not necessary to have been recognized or received awards for this talent or skill, but please talk about them if you have received any awards for this particular skill. And then you also want to talk about how does this lead to opportunities inside or outside of the classroom. So going with the multilingual experience, maybe you're able to make more money at your job because you get extra pay for being able to speak another language. Again, going back to the family example, maybe you're your family's primary translator, and that's the way you helping your family and stuff like that. So it can be a lot of different things. It can be something creative, or it could be something like you're really good at small talk or something like that. As long as you provide examples of why it's meaningful to you, that's a great way to stand out in the application. All right, the next question is the opportunity or barrier question. So for this one, because you don't have much space, again, only 350 words per response, you don't have enough space to adequately address an opportunity and a barrier. So for this one, you will want to pick one and then focus on that. Describe how you've taken advantage of a significant educational opportunity or worked to overcome an educational barrier you have faced. So an educational opportunity is anything that has added value to your educational experience and better prepared you for college. So it could be something like taking dual enrollment classes at your community college while in high school, or maybe if you're in community college, you've taken advantage of EOPS resources, or you're in Puente or a Moja, something like that. Those are all things that can add value to your educational experience. Maybe it's an internship, maybe it's your part-time job, all of those things. So honors or academic enrichment programs could all be considered educational opportunities. Maybe you decided to opt to go to a different high school that is a little further away, but because they have a specific program of interest, you decided to prioritize that, and that's why you're being able to enroll in that school is an opportunity that is adding value to your educational experience. If you choose to write about an educational barrier you face, make sure to talk about how you've overcome or strive to overcome this challenge. So an educational barrier could be something like a long commute, for example, if you drive over an hour to school every day or something like that. It could be something like a learning difference. It could be pretty much anything that is a challenge for you in your academics. So if you've been able to overcome this barrier, talk about it. Maybe it's something like a learning difference where you're not able to, like once you recognize the issue, it's able to go away. Maybe you talk about creating a specialized academic program, or you take less units a semester at your community college to accommodate this, or something like that. That's how you can strive to overcome it and how you've learned to navigate life with this educational barrier. Right, next is the challenge question. Describe the most significant challenge you have faced and the steps you've taken to overcome this challenge. How has this challenge affected your academic achievement? So, a challenge could be something personal. So, it could be something like a learning difference. Maybe you are questioning your gender identity, or maybe talking about something that happened during high school that affected you in your ability to focus in your classes or something like that. It could be something that faced your community or school. So you could talk about COVID. That definitely impacted not only your academics, but every aspect of your life. And with something like COVID affected everyone, but it affected everyone very differently. So you want to provide specific examples of, if you decided to talk about COVID, to talk about it and how it impacted you specifically. How has this challenge affected you academically or otherwise? And how have you overcome this challenge? Or again, maybe it's something that you've just learned to navigate life with. And this is completely confidential. So it's really up to you to disclose whatever you're comfortable disclosing. But for example, if you are undocumented and you want to talk about how being undocumented has affected your academic opportunities, but affected other parts of your life, you don't have to worry about like being reported for your undocumented status. Or if you decide to talk about your gender identity, you're not going to be outed or something like that because of what you write in the application. Next is the academic subject. So again, this is the first year equivalent of the required major prep question, but this one is not required. Think about an academic subject that inspires you. Describe how you have furthered this interest inside or outside of the classroom. So you want to discuss how your interest in the subject developed. Maybe it was a TV show. Maybe it was a specific class you took in high school, or something personal that has informed your decision to pursue a favorite academic subject. Maybe again, using the example from earlier of like you went to the zoo, and ever since then you've been really obsessed with elephants, and that's why you want to study wildlife ecology. You want to describe any experience you have had inside or outside of the classroom. This academic subject is not something you need to have taken, so it's okay if your academic subject does not appear in your transcript, but you've just like self-teaching yourself or teaching yourself programming, for example. So you can talk about programming as an academic subject without having had taken a programming class before. So describe any experience inside or outside of the classroom if you have any experience. And you also want to talk about, has your interest in the subject influenced you in choosing a major and or career path? Have you been able to pursue coursework at a higher level in this subject? So maybe you've taken dual enrollment classes at a community college or university during your time in high school because you're very passionate about this specific subject. Maybe you've taken classes at a different community college from your home community college because they have a more robust program in this specific academic subject area. So lots of things to consider here. Helping your community. So this is the community one. What have you done to make your school or community a better place? So this is where we get to see what you define community as you see fit. So is your community college? Is it your soccer team? Is it Los Angeles County? Is it California? Is it the LGBTQIA community? Lots of things could be considered your community. And this is where we get to see what you define it as. You want to be sure to talk about your specific role in the community. And if there was a problem that was fixed, what inspired you to act? Did you act alone? Was it a group effort? What did you learn from this? So, and then again, you want to provide specific examples of how you've helped your community. So again, providing those details is what's really going to make you stand out in this application, and especially in this question. You want to provide as many explicit examples as you can. And finally, what makes you stand out as a strong candidate? Beyond what has already been shared in your application, what do you believe makes you stand out, makes you a strong candidate for admissions to the University of California? So here's where you want to talk about what makes you unique. Consider this question the last call question. Is there anything else you want us to know about you before we complete our review of your application? You also want to consider what makes you feel like you belong on one of the UC campuses. So for this one, especially for this one, but in the whole application in general, as I said earlier, the same UC application is sent to all the UCs to which you apply. So you don't want to talk about a specific UC campus unless you're only applying to one UC. because realistically, it's not going to add much value to your application. Writing about Berkeley is not going to improve your chances of getting admitted to Berkeley, for example. But you can talk in general about what makes you feel like you belong at a UC campus. And if you talk about Berkeley a lot and then you end up applying to other UCs, that's definitely not going to help you get into there. It's not a negative thing. It's just, I would say that your word count is so limited already. We would rather have you talk more about yourself and provide examples rather than talking about the individual UC campus you want to go to. And again, this is the last call question. What have you not shared that will help us know you better in our application process? So some PIQs, do's and don'ts. So some things to do. Start early. It is October 3rd, so you still have plenty of time. So the fact that you're here on this webinar tonight really shows that you're taking this seriously, and you have plenty of time still to start thinking about it and get some drafts done before the deadline. You want to get feedback and revise. Make sure that it's coming across clearly. Would this answer make sense if you were asked it in an interview? Again, you want to be concise. You only have 350 words, so you want to make sure that you are very efficient in your responses. You want to reflect on it. Again, identify what you got out of the experience and what you learned. So reflect on your experiences and think about what the impact has been on your academic journey with the specific examples. So if you talk about a leadership experience, you want to, again, reflect on that. Right as if you were speaking to a stranger. Again, we can't make any assumptions about you, so you want to make sure you're very explicit and detailed in your responses. And we can't assume anything. You want to help the reader gain a visual image, and you want to tell your story. So use a lot of I statements, I, me, my, to make sure that you are coming across as the focus of the response. So some things to avoid. Don't use cliches, quotes, or jokes. Again, cliches, we want to know about you specifically, so provide details about your journey and interests. Quotes are other people's words taking up your word count. And jokes don't always age well. What you may think is funny in October 2024 may not be funny to me when I'm reading your application in February 2025. So you do want to take this seriously. Again, don't write about a particular campus. Don't write about events in the distant past. For example, if you want to talk about the challenge question and your most significant challenge you have faced was coming to the United States in 4th grade, you can talk about that, but don't write the whole response from the perspective of your 4th grade self. You can talk about how coming to the United States in 4th grade and like being an English as a second language student influenced your development into the person you are today, the applicant now. So maybe those experiences were very important to you and they influenced the way you navigated the education system or something like that. So you can touch on those things that happened in the past, but you want to make sure to bring it back to your current self. Don't be ashamed to brag. I know some people think like bragging doesn't come naturally to some people. So instead of thinking about bragging about yourself, consider it advocating for yourself. To get to this point in your academic journey, you've put in years of hard work, and you deserve to have that hard work reflected in the UC application. So you want to make sure you put your best foot forward and make sure you're giving yourself your best chance possible on the UC application. So really think of it as advocating for yourself. Don't write about everyone but yourself. Don't duplicate information in other parts of the application. So if you think you adequately address something in the extracurricular section, you do not have to keep repeating it in every subsequent section. So if it's all good in the extracurricular section, don't feel the need to have to write a personal insight question about it or something like that. Don't assume we know anything about you. And again, don't treat this like an English essay. It is not an essay. All right, so now we're going to take on the writing process. So tips for creating your PIQ responses. Okay, as I said earlier, we've broken them down to just a few words to make it a little bit more manageable. So we'll start with the leadership question. So that's an easier way. Leadership. What comes to mind when you think of you as a leader? So start to list your experiences. You can talk about like, I'm the president of the student body. I'm the president of the honor society. I'm captain of the soccer team. I'm a caretaker for my siblings and grandparents, and I'm a manager at a local restaurant. So think about what experience is going to give you the most content to write about and provide the most specific examples for you to share your experience as a leader. So looking here, I'm maybe thinking like, I think I can talk the most about caretaker of my siblings and grandparents, because that really speaks to what I believe in, what's important to me as a person, and what my educational experience has been. Like maybe I don't have a lot of time for extracurriculars, but that's because I'm taking care of my siblings and grandparents, and that takes up a lot of time. So let's go with the caretaker example. So you want to identify your specific role in this. So caretaker, who are you taking care of? When are you doing it? What are your duties? Where are you doing this? Why are you doing this? And that gives you a lot of content to start fleshing it out and thinking about and being reflective on what this leadership, what being a caretaker means to you in your leadership experience. What have you learned from this experience? Why are you doing this? How are you doing it? When are you doing it? All of those kinds of things. And that gives you a lot of content for you to start free writing. So write freely to start. Don't limit yourself to 350 words in your first draft. You just want to get it all on the page. Once you got it all on the page, begin process of shortening responses. So thinking what adds value. So start thinking like, this is a nicely written sentence, but ultimately it doesn't add a lot of value. So cut that. You can start combining sentences, or like, this is a bit redundant to what I said earlier, so I can go ahead and cross that out and stuff like that. And that's how you get to 350 words. So you want to revise as much as possible and solicit feedback. I do want to plug your counselors at your school, both at your high school and your college counseling center, and for the transfer students online, your transfer center at your California Community College. Both counselors at the high school and community college are great resources for you and have plenty of experience with the UC personal insight questions. So take advantage of those and have them read it and make sure that your point is getting across and that you've adequately answered these personal insight questions. And you also want to read it out loud. How would you answer the question in an interview? Would what you wrote make sense if you were asked that question in an interview? And if it does, that's perfect. That's what we're looking for. Then the additional comment section is at the end. It is optional, but it is a space for you to fill out. So I think if you have the opportunity to definitely put something in there, it can be written in any form. So paragraph or bullet point, it's up to you. Do not use this to answer another personal insight question. This is not the space for that. And then use it to provide context. That's really what this is for. Context, context, context. So some things that can go in the additional comment section would be places for you to explain a bad grade or a semester or grade trend. Maybe talk about how you had 3 teachers for Spanish 3 during your junior year, and that really impacted your ability to do well in the class. Or maybe you wanted to take more AP classes during your senior year, but there was a conflict between AP Calculus and AP English, so you had to choose one. Any additional information that you think we should know when reviewing your application. So you can explain additional background information not in another part of the application. You can expand on the extracurricular activities if there was no more room in the application, because again, only have 350 characters for that space. So you can expand on them in the extracurricular section and tell the reader any information that would provide additional context. One thing I see a lot from students, and it is a nice sentiment, but doesn't ultimately add value to your application. A lot of students in this section will thank us for reading your application, which is a very sweet sentiment, and we do appreciate it. But we would rather, as admission officers, we'd rather you use those word counts to talk more about yourself. So we appreciate the thanks, but I would rather have you talk more about yourself and add additional context than you thanking us for reading your application.